Good evening, family. It's me, Coach 67 Sports TV. Shout out to the awesome and amazing LDBC, Lions Den Bossa community. Shout out to the greatest university in the world, the Southern University, home of the mighty Jaguars. This is my post-game reaction, part one of the 2024 Southern University Blue versus Gold spring game. Of course, I was in attendance yesterday at A.W. Mumford Stadium, Pete Richardson Field, for Southern University's 2024 Blue versus Gold spring game. And I was unaware that Southern University had their spring game the exact same time as LSU spring game. And as a result, there was a whole lot of traffic on Interstate 10 yesterday. Salute to my brother Big Joe Townsend. Salute to you, bro. But back to what I was saying, it was a lot of traffic on Interstate 10. So, any plans you had that involved I-10, of course, it was a no-go around 11:30 noonish yesterday. So just to kind of set the atmosphere for the game yesterday, first and foremost, in terms of the rules of the spring game, there's a few ways you can set up your spring game. The way we used to do when I was in high school, basically you have two teams and you evenly divide your players among the two teams. In certain instances, coaches draft players. Of course, the head coach is neutral. Usually he's on the field behind the offense. And one assistant coach draft players to one team. The other assistant coach would draft players to the other team, to the opposing team. Or you could do it the way Southern University did yesterday. Essentially, they did offense versus defense, which I hate. I'm gonna go over the scoring for that in a few seconds, and then lastly, you could kind of do a combination of the two previous methods I just mentioned. I've seen teams that would basically just say, to use Southern University for example, the blue would be like your first team offense and your second team defense, and the goal would be your first team defense and your second team offense. So I've seen teams do it that way, to kind of balance it off. But essentially, the way Southern University did yesterday, they did it the way most teams, especially college teams, do their inaugural spring game. It was the blue versus gold. And basically, it's the offense versus the defense. The normal scoring applies for the offense in terms of, a field goal is 3 points, touchdown is 6 points, extra point is 1 point, so on and so forth. The only other additional category that's added, explosive plays. When I was in school, an explosive play was a play of 20 yards or more. However, nowadays, an explosive play is considered to be 15 yards or more. And an explosive play was 2 points for the offense. So that was the scoring breakdown for the offense. For the defense, of course, it's different because you're on the defensive side of the ball. And, of course, the goal was the defense. Is 1 point if you get a tackle for loss for the defense. 2 points for a sack. Salute to my brother Jared O'Lovin Green. Salute, bro. So 1 point if you get a tackle for loss. 2 points if you get a sack defensively. I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, 2 points if you either 2 or 4 points if the offense turned the ball over on downs. 4 points if there's a defensive takeaway, and 7 points if the defense scores a touchdown. So that's just kind of set the rules for the spring game. In terms of the atmosphere, of course, it's your typical, normal, family-friendly atmosphere in terms of Southern University. I think the one difference from a weather standpoint, when the regular season starts in August, September, it's a lot more hot. It's a lot hotter. It's a lot more humid. However, I think, when the regular season rolls around, you kind of adjust to the heat and humidity. But in the spring, it's not as hot, it's not as humid. It's a drier heat, like a West Coast type heat. And I think that kind of makes it worse. And in addition to that, the fact that they're playing a spring game in the heat of the day, that's another, added layer. Kickoff was supposed to be at 1:00. And of course, most games don't kick off at exactly the supposed kickoff time. So it's supposed to kick off at 1. They ended up kicking off maybe about 7 minutes after 1. Of course, there's no special teams for the exception of like field goals and extra points. So the biggest narrative coming into the yesterday's spring game was who's going to be the starting quarterback, name the starting quarterback coming out of it. Basically, what I was told Friday going into the spring game, which was accurate, of Noah Biden, of course, he's the Grambling University transfer. He started the Bayou Classic and he led Southern to a win versus Grambling in the Bayou Classic. So basically, he started the game, and supposedly Noah Biden and Jalen Woods were competing for the starting job, from what I understood. And Zay Tessett, local Scotlandville High School prospect, Jalen Woods and Zay Tessett are both going into this season. They go both be redshirt freshmen. They both were true freshmen last year. They both redshirted. So supposedly Zay was in the third position. Jalen Woods was the backup. Noah was the anticipated starter. So that's the way it kind of played out. Noah got the first series. Jalen Woods got the second series. Zay got the third series. So that's how it played out in terms of, once the game started. The first play, the offense got a first down. However, from that point forward, it kind of went downhill for the offense. And they kind of pretty much sputtered out. They went 4-and-out. So the defense ended up, getting the score right away. One other thing, too, in terms of the defense was early. They was extremely active and aggressive. The one player that really stood out in the game was, he played for Scotlandville High also. Number 93 defensive tackle Willie Miles. I'm not gonna lie, he was active, he was aggressive. He really got after Southern's offensive line. In addition to that, the other two defensive players, the players that had these numbers last year, I don't think they're no longer with them. That's another thing. Yesterday, they actually had a PA announcer. He did announce a lot of the names and stuff, but some of the names you couldn't hear because ordinarily I sit on the east side. Yesterday, the way it was set up, all the fans had to sit on the west side. And for the most part, everybody pretty much sat in sections 8W, 9W. For those that never been to AEW Memphis Stadium, Pete Richardson Field, essentially that's like the 50-yard line area. And then everybody else kind of sat in 7W and 10W. So essentially, it's kind of practically from 30 to 30, like essentially the middle of the field. So those 4 middle sections is where all the fans sat. There was no one that was sitting on the east side. For those individuals that been to AEW Memphis Stadium, the east side is the away side, and essentially it's like the heat or the sun is beaming directly on you. You're sitting on the east side. We sat on the west side, but it still was, pretty hot. It was like a dry heat, not as humid because it's springtime. But getting back to the game, early on in the game, it was a lot of miscues on both sides of the ball. The defense jumped off sides a lot. The offense had a lot of false starts. So it was a lot of penalties early on on both sides. A lot of sloppy play. In addition to that, from a quarterbacking perspective, all three quarterbacks during the course of the game, all three of them look good. However, all three of them look bad also. They look bad early, but as play progressed, they all started to play better as the game progressed. So, of course, the offense struggled. The defense really got after the offense. And for the first few series, like I said, Noah Biden, he got the first series. Jalen Woods got the second series. Zay Tested got the third series. So it took a while for the offense to get going. Now, I know some individuals were basically saying, well, coach, it really wasn't fair, the fact that each quarterback kind of took a series. Maybe that's why it took the offense a while to get going and to develop a rhythm. That's understandable, but, both offense and defense came out sloppy, but the defense was extremely aggressive. They really had the competitive advantage over the offense. So, of course, after they went, basically like maybe 5 and out, 6 and out, whatever the case was, Jalen Woods, he came in. Offense didn't do any better. Then Zay Tesset came in the game, and he moved them a little bit before the other two quarterbacks did. So he kind of moved the offense a little bit more than Jalen Woods and then Noah Biden did the first couple series. So he moved them a little bit more. One thing I noticed for the three quarterbacks, one of the narratives for last season, for Southern University fans, they know that Harold Blood was the starting quarterback for pretty much most of the season, just about the entire season. The only game he really didn't start was the Bayou Classic, and Noah ended up becoming the starting quarterback for that particular game. One of the storylines in the narratives that was like real prevalent last year was the fact that Jalen Woods, who was a true freshman last year, from Georgia, and Zay Tesset, who's from right around the corner from Southern University, Scotlandville High, basically, salute to Big Red, salute to you, bro. Basically, the narrative was those two individuals, even though they were the two least experienced quarterbacks, they were the most talented on the roster, and that Harold Blood should have been pulled for one of those three quarterbacks. And I'm here to kind of say, basically, that theory kind of got debunked yesterday. I think, based on the three quarterbacks, I think Zay Tesset, I think he's the most athletic of the three, even though from an athleticism standpoint, it wasn't like a quantum leap from Jalen Woods and Noah Biden to Zay Tesset. He's a little bit more athletic than the other two, but it's not by leaps and bounds. The athleticism jump is marginal at best. So he's the most athletic of the three. However, and not only that, but he moved the offense earlier of the three quarterbacks. He got them going sooner. But even with that being said, in terms of a mechanic standpoint, in terms of his throwing mechanics, his footwork, he's the least polished of the three quarterbacks. One thing in terms of his passes, like he throws every time he drops back to pass and he throws a pass, like every pass is on a straight line, every pass is a bullet. Like he doesn't put any arc on his passes, any touch on his passes. It's like basically if he's a pitcher, every pitch he throws is a fastball. He can't throw a change up, a curve, none of those other like type of pitches. Everything is a fastball. The only two times he threw a ball that had some touch or some arc on it, the third series, like I said, when he started to move the ball, at one point the offense had a penalty, and the referee, the head official, he was like maybe 10 yards away from him, and he just kind of lobbed it and threw him the ball. And I'm thinking to myself, he can put arc and touch on his passes, but once the next play resumed, again, he threw another bullet pass, and he could have put a little bit more touch on that pass. I think the wide receiver would have caught it. That was another thing too. Early on, all the wide receivers, they dropped a lot of passes. That was one thing that was real prevalent. Also, I think more so Jalen Woods and Noah, they threw receivers out of bounds a lot too. That was another issue that those two in particular, I think all three of them had it, but I think those two had that issue more so than Zay Tesset, throwing receivers out of bounds instead of, leading them upfield to where they could catch the ball inbounds and keep running up the field. It's like they threw a lot of passes out of bounds. So the wide receiver would be on the sideline, and he would have to, try to tiptoe and make the catch in bounds, but he was led out of bounds. So that was one thing that was the issue. Salute to you, Rodney Norris. Who scored the first touchdown? I'm about to get to that in a minute. But basically, The issue was, the offense really, I'll probably say up until maybe the first couple minutes of the second quarter, they looked like the exact same team that we saw the entire season. Offense came out the gate struggling, couldn't move the ball, so on and so forth. The defense, aggressive, getting after it. But then maybe like a few minutes into the second quarter, the offense just exploded. At one point, Zay tested through a long pass down the field. The wide receiver, I don't remember his name, he was number 81. He dropped what would have been an easy touchdown. He'd have walked right into it, but the play would have got called back anyway because of the simple fact that they had an illegal man downfield for the offense. So, but in terms of who scored the first touchdown, wide receiver Cam Jefferson, he caught a long touchdown pass, and then it's like the floodgates open. To me, I think some of the same issues Southern had during the course of the season, they had yesterday during the spring game. First and foremost, the offensive line. I hate to say it, that's a little bit of an issue right now. Southern passed the ball yesterday about 85% of the time, and the one thing I like in terms of the passing game, more so than this past season with Coach Dooley, it was a variety of different pass plays. If you look at a couple of the clips, they threw screen passes to both the running backs, the wide receivers. One other thing in terms of the running backs, Kendrick Grimes didn't play in yesterday's game. I don't know if he's hurt, if he's injured, or whatever the case may be. Kendrick Grimes didn't start. It was Kobe Dillon started, C.J. Russell, and they had this third running back, number 38. I don't remember his name. He had a good screen pass that went for like 25, 30 yards or so. One thing I did like early on to kind of get, when the offense was struggling to kind of get them going, they threw the ball to the tight end, Dupree Fuller, or Fuller Dupree. I always, the way his name's set up, I always want to call his last name first, his first name last, but they kind of got him going to kind of get the offense going. That was one thing they did. Like I said, they did a good job in terms of their passes. They threw the ball short, intermediate, and deep. Another thing I noticed too, in terms of the quarterbacks, they did a lot of, in terms of passing the ball. It was a lot of quick set. Either they got the snap and they just like raise up and go through the progression immediately. It was quick 3-step drops, but it was no 5-7-step drops. Everything was quick. They really went through the progression quick. They tried to make some quick passes, some speed out, some slants. And then eventually, they kind of mixed it up. They went short, intermediate, deep. They mixed up the passes. They threw some screens to the wide receivers, to the running backs. They got the tight end going early. That's really kind of what got the offense going. And they tried to run the ball, but they had no success really running the ball. They had a handful of good running plays, but more than anything, the defense, they got a lot of pressure like early, but it seems like as the game kind of progressed, especially once they got into the second quarter, the offense had, a couple big plays, and then boom, it just kind of took off. Cam Jefferson, he caught the first touchdown. And then Chandler Whitfield, I think he caught a touchdown, if I'm not mistaken, I think Noah threw the first touchdown. Chandler Whitfield threw a touchdown. Now, one thing I want to point out too, I kind of forgot to mention this. Zay tested, he almost threw a pick six. He got the offense going, and then he threw, I think it was maybe a corner route or out route or deep out or whatever. The DB intercepted it, and he returned it to like the 3-yard line before the wide receiver caught him and tackled him. So at the end of the first quarter, the score was 23-2 in favor of the goal, which was the defense. And then eventually the offense just got it going, and it was explosion, a lot of big plays. So one thing I noticed, the defense was, had a competitive advantage early. They was aggressive. They really was getting after them, after the offense. The only offensive lineman that I was really like kind of thought to play decent was the Gonzalez kid, the Hispanic kid that transferred from McNeese. I think he played decent, but truthfully speaking, the offensive line, to be polite about it, I wasn't impressed with him, just to say the least. So the defensive line, they really got after him. Like I said, the kid from Scotlandville, Willie Miles, he was extremely disruptive. He wreaked a lot of havoc. He played on the plus side, the line of scrimmage a lot. He got a lot of pressure. He was like very active, very aggressive. He caused a lot of problems for the offensive line. The other two, like I said, the other two defensive players, number 96, I don't remember his name, 57. The two players that wore those numbers last year, I don't think they're no longer on the team. Basically, those three defensive linemen really, they kind of wreaked a lot of havoc. The offensive line struggled. Kobe Dillon had, a decent run. C.J. Russell had a decent run. But for the most part, if the offense got a good run, they couldn't follow it up with another good run. So for the most part, that's the reason why they kind of stuck with the passing game. Like I said, the offense passed the ball like 85% of the time, which to me was kind of alarming because I know one thing in the spring that Coach Terrence Graves really pointed out was the fact that he wanted to kind of go back to where Southern used to be in terms of using the run game to set up the pass game, and he wanted to kind of be physical, aggressive, and nasty up front. And the offensive line just kind of struggled, to say the least. The passing game was really what carried them. And like I said, once Cam Jefferson caught the first touchdown pass, things kind of broke open. Chandler Whitfield caught a touchdown pass, Jordan Petrie. In terms of which quarterback I think kind of did the best, me personally, I think Noah Biden. I think he was the best of the three quarterbacks, followed by Jalen Woods and then Zay Tessett. And there was a member of Southern University's quarterback club that kind of sat behind me. And one thing he pointed out was the fact that during the course of the season last year, I kind of brought it up earlier, the narrative was, now, last year during the season, 4 people told me that the 2 best quarterbacks on the roster in terms from a talent standpoint was Zay Tessett and Jalen Woods. 2 people said it was Jalen Woods. 2 people said it was Zay Tessett. I ain't gonna lie, yesterday, all 3 of them had their struggles at certain points, and all 3 of them played well at certain points. But like I said, I think Noah Biden played the best. Second, Jalen Woods. Third, Zay Tessett. And I think Noah and Jalen, they kind of close, because really, for the exception of, I think, Jalen being a little bit taller than Noah, they kind of look similar in terms of their play style, how polished they are as passers. They kind of favor each other and they resemble each other a lot in terms of the way they play. Whereas, Zay Tessett, of course, for one, he's left-handed. The other 2 quarterbacks are right-handed. In addition to that, like I said, he didn't have any touch on his passes. Everything was a bullet. Like I said, if he was a pitcher, every pass he threw, if it was a pitch, everything was a fastball. He threw one deep pass where the wide receiver dropped it. He would have had a touchdown, but he dropped it. But other than that, he needs to work on his footwork and his mechanics from a throwing standpoint. But like I said, one thing that was noticeable, he moved the offense earlier than the other 2 quarterbacks. And in addition to that, like, he's more athletic than the other 2. But like I was saying, back to like the game itself, the first quarter, the defense kind of dominated. They were leading 23-2. And then all of a sudden, in the second quarter, I don't know if it was a combination of the offense just kind of found a rhythm, or the fact that the defense kind of wore down. I think it was a combination of the 2, because from an offensive standpoint, all 3 quarterbacks played, basically just alternated series. Noah got the first series, Jalen got the second series, Zay got the third series, and then they didn't go like in a particular order. They just kind of mixed it up. And I think more than anything, I think Coach Graves did a good job making sure each quarterback got the same amount of snaps So I think each quarterback might have been on a snap count, because I know at one point Jalen Woods was in the game, and then all of a sudden he took him out and put Noah back in the game. So I think more than anything, I think each quarterback got a certain amount of touches. So it wasn't like last year where Harold Blood in the spring game, he got the lion's share of the snaps, and Dylan Maroda and Noah just kind of got the scraps. I think everybody got the same amount of touches. Salute to my brother Brent Fox. Salute to you, bro. But back to what I was saying, basically, like all quarterbacks got the same amount of touches. And once the offense got going, things kind of broke open. I think the defense kind of wore down, because for the most part, seemed like the same defensive players just kind of stayed on the field, like, the vast majority of the time. Whereas in terms of the offense, they played a ridiculous amount of receivers, Cam Jefferson, Chandler Whitfield, Fuller Dupree, Jordan Petrie. Jordan Petrie also caught a touchdown. So basically, they kind of mixed up the personnel from an offensive standpoint in terms of like skill players. All of them played. Whereas from a defensive standpoint, it just kind of seemed like they had the same core of defensive players in the game. Really, after the first quarter, I'm thinking to myself, wow, like they seem like the exact same team that they were during the course of the season. Like, struggle to move the ball early offensively. The defense was aggressive and dominant. But then, like I said, like a few minutes into the second quarter, the offense really exploded. And the offense just kind of took off, and they just kind of went to the next level. So, like I said, my big question is, did the defense get tired? Did the offense find a rhythm? Like I said, me personally, I think it's kind of a combination of the two. And after that point, the first half ended, and for the most part, it was kind of like a mass exodus. I'll probably say maybe half to maybe 3/5 of the crowd just kind of got up and left after that. Myself included, where everybody kind of felt like they saw enough they saw enough, and they really didn't need to see the second half. One of my friends, he kind of stayed. He stayed in for the entire duration of the spring game. So on my part two of my post game reaction, I'm a kind of filling the gap in terms of the second half. But more than anything, just to kind of give you the highlights. For the most part, like I said, I think the scoring of the spring game is stupid to me. To me, I think you should just evenly divide the two teams and just let them kind of go head to head, as opposed to offense against defense. It's confusing to the fans. But more than anything, I think, don't get me wrong, I think it was competitive either way, but I think it'll be more competitive if you just kind of evenly divide the teams up, with whether you have a draft or however you do it. So that's first and foremost. Second of all, like I said, it just kind of seemed like they were the exact same team. Not in terms of the play calling. The play calling was light years better than when Eric Dooley was there this past season. There was more variety of different pass plays. The pass plays was both short, intermediate, and deep. They had a lot of screens to the wide receivers and to the running backs. They got the tight end involved early. So, those are some of the positive things. The positive is the fact that, it was a lot more variation from an offensive standpoint in terms of the play calling. And in addition to that, the fact that the offense scored a lot more points than they normally do. Well, yeah, they ran some motion. Willie Bolden, salute to you. They ran some motion. Some of it, they just kind of, stayed the way they are. Like, for those NFL fans that used to watch the Colts, where it wasn't like a whole lot of motion. You knew where Reggie Wayne was going to be at. You knew where Marvin Harrison was going to be at. But they just kind of just did their thing. But there were instances where they kind of mixed it up. They sent Chandler Whitfield in motion, or Cam Jefferson or whoever. So it was kind of like a variation of it. So, but more than anything, once the offense got clicking, like, it was an explosion. And, I'm encouraged from the standpoint of the offense looked a lot better this spring than they did the previous spring, with Harold Blood at the helm. Of course, they had some plays last spring, but for the most part, the offense was kind of atrocious. And Harold Blood, even though he showed some progression from the SWAC championship game that he played in for like 2 or 3 plays the previous year to last spring, I'm kind of more encouraged by the offense, how they just kind of had an explosion and they did extremely well. The negatives is the fact that I know it's the spring for one, and it was early in the game. But another issue that they had was they had a lot of penalties on both sides of the ball. That was a huge issue during the course of the season, where the offense had a lot of penalties, and of course the defense had a lot of penalties. The biggest defensive penalty that they had during the course of the season was offsides or encroachment. Like, those 2 penalties used to just drive me crazy, because they got to a point where offenses would intentionally draw the defense offside and they would get free plays. It happened a few times yesterday. I think Zay, he drew him off once, but I think Noah, he did the best job in terms of his cadence, where he kind of mixed up his cadence and he intentionally drew the defense offsides a couple of times. So I think Noah did the best job in that regard. And more than anything, I kind of feel like maybe because he's the most experienced quarterback, he kind of had more of a awareness of the game more so than the other two. The other two are true freshmen. And I think they all had their shining points from a quarterback position, where Noah played well in spots and he struggled in spots. Jalen played well in spots. He struggled in spots. Zay struggled in spots. He played well in spots. Zay got the offense going before the other two did. But he did have the biggest mistake. He almost threw a pick six. He threw a touchdown pass. He had a quarterback sneak for a touchdown at the end of the first half. So, all 3 quarterbacks, played poorly at times, played well at times. I think if it was me, Noah would be the starting quarterback going into summer camp, and Jalen Woods would be the backup, and Zay would be third string. I think, a lot of people last season, they kind of wanted him to play because not only the fact that Harold Blood struggled so much, but the fact that, he a local hometown guy. And like I was saying, there was this guy that was sitting behind me that's in Southern University's quarterback club. He was saying basically that he felt like local people really kind of put that narrative out there, but he kind of felt like in terms of from a progression standpoint, in these terms of like mechanics and being polished, like he's the lower of the 3 quarterbacks, even though he's the most athletic from a being polished standpoint, from going through his reads and his progression, from his footwork, his passing mechanics, and that's one thing he said. He said he went to a couple of the practices, and whatever offensive coach was working with him, basically in terms of Zay tested, he not only told him what to do, but he actually demonstrated and showed him what to do. But he seemed like he could never get it. And like I was telling him, maybe from a passing standpoint, maybe that's just his natural throwing motion. But, he doesn't have enough, touch and arc on a lot of the passes he throws. He's effective at times, but his throwing motion is kind of like a funky left-handed sidearm type deal. You'd have to see it to kind of see what I'm talking about. But overall, I was encouraged with what I saw yesterday. I think in a normal season, I would say what I saw yesterday will be enough to get you 7 wins. But the issue with the schedule is the fact that all of Southern's big games, first they start the season out on the road against McNeese State. And the irony about, for some of my brothers that's in the chat, the irony of the situation is the fact that our friend, Mr. McDowell, who went to Louisiana Tech, he also went to Central Arkansas. Last year, during the summer, he committed to Southern. And for those individuals that don't know who I'm talking about Clifton McDowell. Clifton McDowell, he's from Texas. He started out at Louisiana Tech. He eventually transferred to Central Arkansas. Then he transferred from there. He was looking to come to Southern. And I think once he saw how crowded the quarterback room was, he re-entered it. He committed to Southern, then he decommitted. He re-entered the transfer portal, and he ended up going to Montana. He ended up going to Montana and becoming the Big Sky Conference Player of the Year. And, he had an excellent season last year. And he committed to Prairie View. And I'm thinking to myself, well, okay, at least he's going to end up back in the SWAC. And he decommitted to Prairie View. And he ended up going to McNeese. So from what I'm understanding, more than likely, it's no guarantee that he's going to be the starting quarterback at McNeese, but from what I'm understanding, more than likely, he'll probably be the starting quarterback at McNeese. So when Southern played their first game on August the 31st in Lake Charles against McNeese, more than likely, he'll be the starting quarterback. And the irony of the situation is, had he came to Southern, I'm going to just kind of be truthful. I think eventually he would have beat out Harold Blood to be the starting quarterback. That's just my personal opinion. I know a lot of people was saying that, Mr. Brent Fox, 100%, Mr. Pump Fake. That's exactly what he is. Because he commits to certain schools, then he decommits, and then he goes somewhere else. But the point I'm trying to make in terms of the season, I was encouraged with what I saw yesterday, but the issue is the fact that all the Southern big games, they start out on a road against McNeese. They play Jackson State on the road. Like if you they play FAMU on the road. If you look at all of Southern's big games, they all on the road, and that's problematic. And the only big game that they play at home, they play against Alcorn State, and it's for homecoming. So it's like the schedule is and Rodney Norris made an excellent point. Nobody was beating out Harold Blood with Dooley as the head coach. And many individuals in Jaguar Nation kind of felt the same way. Me personally, I kind of think you're right, Rodney Norris II, because I'm going to be truthful. The way Harold Blood played at certain points during the course of the season, the fact that he didn't pull him and put Noah in sooner than the Bayou Classic, well, of course, he was relieved of his duties by that point. But there's no way he should have stuck with Noah. There's no way he should have stuck with Harold Blood as long as he did. And that's one thing, the guy that was behind me, that's in the quarterback club, was saying. He was saying, one of the refreshing feelings that a lot of people that's close to the program have is the fact that, with Eric Dooley, he showed a lot of favoritism. Because just think about it. His first year, Glenn Bubba McDaniel was by far the best quarterback. But since he had a close personal relationship with Benny and Bashawn McCray was starting quarterback. And essentially, all Bashawn McCray was a glorified running back playing quarterback. There's no way he should have been a starting quarterback at Southern University. And you get to the SWAC championship game, even in spite of that. And instead of starting Glenn Bubba McDaniel to start the SWAC championship, you put in Bashawn McCray, he struggled. Then you put in Harold Blood, he struggled more. Then you put Bashawn McCray back in the game. And before you know it, you're in a 26-point hole, it's 26-0. Then you put Glenn Bubba McDaniel in the game. And as soon as you put him in the game, he leads you straight down the field to a touchdown. So, like Southern, a lot of other Southern fans, basically, had he started Glenn Bubba McDaniel to start the SWAC championship game, I really feel like they could have and would have beat Jackson State. And even last year, Harold Blood, basically, he was a starting quarterback going into the spring. He had the most experience, which wasn't saying much or nothing. And he struggled during the course of the season. And just like yesterday, he, Dooley tried to make it a pass-happy offense. But I think, once he was leading up to the FAMU game, he realized that Harold Blood isn't that guy. So he tried to lean more on a running game than Kendrick Grimes. But the issue with that is the offensive line is not as good as they was, years past. You don't have guys like Jatari Carter or, Dallas Black, Jeremiah Stafford, Kendrick Baptiste, I could go like down the line, Lundy Wells, like just savage, real good Southern University offensive lineman that, did an excellent job blocking, were aggressive, effective in terms of both, more so the running game, but both the running and passing game. The offensive line isn't that, what it's been in the past, and it was evident yesterday during the spring game. So that's one of the major issues of concern for me is the offensive line is not as good as it used to be. The defense, even though they played well to start out, they still kind of had a lot of offsides penalties. The offense had a lot of sloppy penalties, a lot of drop passes. So, some of the same issues they had during the course of the season, it kind of reared their ugly head yesterday. But even with that being said, the offense looked a lot better than they did during the course of the season. Of course, it took a while to get going, but part of that could be attributed to the fact that each quarterback took a series and it kept alternating series. Not only that, you had a lot of turnover at the wide receiver position. It's like they played a bunch of, they played Darren Morris, they played Tyler Kirkwood. So they played some of the guys that played during the course of the season, but you also had a lot of new faces at the wide receiver position. So they played a ridiculous amount of wide receivers. They played all three quarterbacks. So, it was more interchangeable pieces on the offensive side, whereas the defense, they kind of just pretty much stuck with, their main core guys, and those guys pretty much played the whole time. And I think, with all the passing the offense did, maybe they wore down. Maybe the offense found a rhythm, but I think it was a combination of the two where, the defense kind of wore down a little bit and the offense kind of found a rhythm and got it going. So I think that's the reason why the offense had so much success, in the second quarter. I mean, just to think about it, at the end of the first quarter, the score was 23-2 in favor of the defense. Then at halftime, the score was 52 to 31 in favor of the offense. So the offense exploded, and they just kind of, took it to a whole nother level. So there was some encouraging signs. Willie Bowden asked, so is this the quarterback position still a competition? And that's another thing, too. They kind of made it clear that it's still an open competition. One thing, the guy that was sitting behind me that's in a quarterback club, I didn't hear it. I don't watch the news. I don't watch WAFB, WBRZ. For those individuals that don't know, that's the two local news channels here in Baton Rouge. I really don't watch the news like that, but from what I'm understanding, they have a new offensive coach. He's not the offensive coordinator or anything, but he's a new offensive coach. And basically, Terrence Gray made it clear, once he finished the first wave of recruiting, that he was content with the three quarterbacks that he had at the quarterback position. But the guy behind me, basically, he was saying that, this new offensive coach, he wants to bring in a fourth quarterback. Me personally, based on what I saw yesterday, I kind of agree with Coach Graves. I was content with what I saw. Even if, one quarterback gets hurt, one quarterback doesn't play well, I feel like one of the other two, or even the other two, could kind of pick up the slack for whoever gets injured or whoever isn't playing well, whatever the case may be. But he said this offensive coach wants to bring in another quarterback. And in addition to that, he wants to bring in, some more skilled players, more. I don't mind the more offensive line and more defensive backs. That's cool. But he said this guy wants to bring in more wide receivers. And I'm thinking to myself, like, you don't think enough wide receivers played yesterday? I mean, they had a ridiculous amount of wide receivers that played during the course of the spring game yesterday. So it's going to kind of be interesting to see, like, are they really going to go with some of these new faces that we saw yesterday? Or are they going to go with some, some of the guys that's been there, like the Tyler Kirkwoods, the Darren Morris, the Chandler Whitfields, Cam Jefferson, in terms of the wide receivers, I felt like he was a real standout. I mean, he's a taller wide receiver. He could go get the ball. He was pretty good taking off. Also, Chandler Whitfield, of course, I think they need to do a better job getting him the ball in space because, not only was he a good punt and kick returner last year, I mean, don't get me wrong, he wasn't as good as Willie Quinn, Kenyatta Sparks, Fred Bailey, Ezra Landry, any of those type of guys. But he was decent. So I think they need to get him the ball more out in space. Also, I don't know if he's related to Elvis Petrie, but another wide receiver that caught a touchdown pass was Jordan Petrie. So I don't know if he's related to Salute the Creole King. He said, how was the special teams? That was one thing too. At one point, the offense scored. I think Jordan Petrie caught a touchdown pass. And we like, well, what is Coach Gray screaming about? The kicker missed the extra point, so he was screaming about that. He had the bullhorn in his hand. Just like a normal spring game, he was behind the offense. He had the bullhorn in his hand. He had the blue long sleeve shirt on with the Fisher's hat on. He was, for the most part, he was kind of calm and chill. But when he missed the extra point, he did a lot of yelling and screaming. Willie Bowden, do we have a punter? I think that's going to be the big question because the punter we had during the course of the season, he graduated. He was a beast. He went on. He graduated. So I don't know, but the punter position. So that's kind of a question mark. And one thing with the spring game too, there's no outside of kicking a field goal or kicking an extra point. There is no special teams. So you didn't have no kickoff team, no kick return team, so on and so forth. So the punting position, that's kind of a question mark in terms of what Billy Bob's saying. Starting quarterback in the fall, he got Zay Tessit, then Jalen Woods, then Noah Biden. Me personally, I kind of have the opposite. I have Noah Biden based on what I saw yesterday. Noah Biden will be my starting quarterback. Jalen Woods will be my backup, and Zay Tessit will be my third string. We need a soccer type kicker. I think if you kind of get the best of both worlds, you get a kicker like a Carlos Leach type. Carlos Leach did a good job. I've seen Southern kickers that make long field goals but miss extra points. Carlos Leach, not only did he make his extra points, but he made long field goals. And there were a few instances where on kickoffs where, hey, he was the last man to beat to prevent the opposing punt returner from not punt returner, but opposing kick returner from scoring the touchdown, and he made open field tackles in a few instances. So I think if we get a Carlos Leach type kicker, I think he's probably the best kicker I've seen in Southern in terms of just being consistent, being accurate, and just kind of being like a Swiss Army knife type kicker, having a high degree of utility, making all his extra points, making his field goals. And the crazy thing about it, he had a year eligibility left, but he already graduated. Once he graduated, he just left instead of, taking his last year eligibility book. But that was some years ago. But more than anything, overall, I was encouraged with what I saw yesterday. I think more than anything, he said like Roger Surtain from '83. Yeah. I mean, in my lifetime, I think Carlos Leach was the best kicker I've seen. But more than anything, I was encouraged with what I saw yesterday during the spring game. Just to kind of give you, my final kind of recap and overview. Now this is not the entire spring game. This is the first half, but the offense struggled to start it out. The defense pretty much was whooping on the offense. At the end of the first quarter, it was 23-2 in favor of the defense. Then in the second quarter, the offense exploded, and the offense just kind of went ham. All three quarterbacks played well in the second quarter. We had a lot of big plays. Like I said, Cam Jordan, he kind of popped it off. He caught the first touchdown pass. Chandler Whitfield caught the next one. Jordan Petrie caught the third one. The players that kind of stood out to me from an offensive standpoint, I think is from a quarterbacking standpoint, I felt like Noah, he did the best job of the three. I think Jalen Woods was a close second, and I think Zay Tessit kind of came in third, even though he kind of got the offense going before the other two did. He moved the ball more than the other two. He's more athletic than the other two, but also from a mechanic standpoint, his throwing mechanics is the weakest of the three. In addition to that, his footwork isn't as good. He kind of reminds me of like Bashawn McCray, Harold Blood in terms of a few instances. He kind of got stuck on his first read yesterday. They didn't. One thing I noticed, they didn't do as much dropping back to pass. It's like once they got the ball from the center, once he snapped it to him in the shotgun, they just kind of raised up and just kind of immediately kind of went through the progression. And when they did drop back, it was like a short 3-step. There was no 5-step drops, definitely no 7-step drops. So for the most part, they just kind of raised up and just kind of immediately started going through the progression. I think Noah, he did the best job in terms of, was able to go from his first read to his second read. If his first read would open, he was able to raise up quickly and make a good pass. So, that was one of the things that I kind of was impressed with him the most in terms of the three. I think Zay did the worst job of those three. Willie Bolden was like, do you think our quarterbacks are working on their own? Now, from what I'm understanding, the guy that was behind me yesterday, that's in the quarterback club, the way he was talking, like they got a lot of, hands-on, like individualized instruction. And, that's the reason why I think he was kind of talking down on Zay Tessett. Basically, he was saying that, I noticed it before he even said it. I'm like, man, he doesn't have any touch on his passes. Don't get me wrong, he's throwing a lot of tight spirals and a lot of hard passes, but even when he's throwing the ball a little further down the field, like he is not putting any arc, any touch on his passes. Everything is like just a straight line drive, like. So that's one thing I really noticed. So he was saying, they're getting like individual. Basically, the coach that was working with him, like he was at practice a couple times. He told him what to do, and in addition to that, he actually passed the ball. And he showed him what to do, and he wasn't able to, translate that teaching into his throwing mechanics. And I was telling him, well, maybe that's as a quarterback, maybe that's just his natural throwing motion. So I mean, that's the only thing I really could see more than anything. Creole King, salute to Creole King. He would say, which quarterback can run the ball if necessary? I think of the three, I think Zay Tessett, I think he the best runner of the three. Not only, I mean, all three of them had design runs. Noah had a design run. He really didn't get any yardage. Jalen Woods had a design run. He got a tackle for loss. Well, of course, you can't hit the quarterback in the spring game. That's another thing. So Noah and Jalen, they had tackles for loss. Zay did also, but it was more so attributed to the offensive line. Just they need a lot of work, to say the least. But he ran a couple of times. In fact, it was 4th and like 5. He dropped back to pass. Nothing was open. He took off and run. He got the first down. He kept that drive going. They got down to the 1-yard line, and he was able to get a quarterback sneak to finish off the first half with a score. So of those three quarterbacks, I think he's the best runner. He's the most athletic, even though I think he's the third of the three in terms of, as just a pure quarterback. Even though I would make him my third string quarterback, I would have a package for him to come in at certain points. I wouldn't make him a glorified running back, but I would have a package for him. I mean, if I was Coach Graves, that's just me. And in terms of Rodney Norris, the second, he asked, I know 2 of them work on their own for sure. I'm not saying they don't do any individualized work. I'm sure they do, especially if you're on a college level. But the guy that was in a quarterback club that was behind me, basically he was saying that they get like one-on-one individualized instruction, and he was saying even with the coaching and the teaching that Zay Tessett was receiving, he still wasn't able to improve his throwing mechanics from a passing standpoint. So I think that's the thing. He was saying. All right, Creole King, do you think that we might get some more offensive linemen in the fall? From what I'm understanding, some more offensive linemen are supposed to be coming in. In fact, I saw offensive lineman that plays at Zachary High School. He wasn't on the field. He was actually on the in the stands. I recognize his dad and I saw him. So he's one that probably gonna try to maybe try out later on. From what I'm understanding, in addition to that, more offensive linemen are supposed to be coming. But I'm not gonna lie, I think of all the areas I saw that's areas of biggest concern, I see the offensive line is probably the biggest area of concern in my personal opinion. The offensive line, it wasn't impressive. Like I said, the center, the Gonzalez kid that transferred from McNeese. I did a video about him like probably about a year ago. I'll probably say he did decent, but overall, like Willie Miles and the two defensive ends, that's another thing too. Kelby Givens didn't play yesterday. So Kelby Givens didn't play, but 96 and 98, like they got a lot of pressure off the edge. Willie Miles, he wreaked havoc up the middle. They did some TE stunts, not too many of them, like a couple of them, but no matter where Willie Miles was at, he was a disruptive force. He kind of reminded me a lot of the Marcus Miller, the defensive line coach, defensive tackle coach. He's not as strong as Miller was, but he was that type of aggressive and he was that type of disruptive. So, yeah, I think they need some offensive linemen. Not true freshmen, but from the JC ranks, like you're saying, from junior college. Rodney Norris is second year, I hope. So, yeah, they really need some more offensive linemen. And Billy Bob makes an excellent point. The second wave of the transfer portal is getting ready to open. I remember last year, Trey Lang had a excellent spring game. He just the way the two defensive ends off the edge yesterday. Trey Lang was off one edge last year, and Kelby Givens was off the other edge. Of course, Kelby Givens was the best pass rusher during the course of this past season. But after he had an impressive spring game last year, Trey Lang entered the transfer portal. So, that's one thing we kind of have to look out for. Hopefully, none of the players that played well yesterday jump into the portal after the spring game. That's one thing I kind of pointed out, leading into the spring game. In 2 years, we wrecked the offensive line. Yeah, I ain't gonna lie, Dooley. The offensive line play is just trash. I'm being honest about it, as honest as I could be, just to be truthful. Offensive line play really need to pick up. You know what I'm saying? Rodney Norris is second. He was saying, is it the lack of talent or discipline? I think in terms of the penalties, I think it's it's spring. So, in many instances, I know from a player standpoint, you typically, I've seen, even when I was in high school, it was real slop in the spring. Once you go through summer camp and then once you get into the season, like a lot of mistakes you have in the spring, you kind of clean it up as you go along. So I think a lot of mistakes they had yesterday, I think they're going to get cleaned up. But in terms of the offensive line play, I ain't going to say it's a lack of discipline. I say it's a lack of talent when it came to the offensive line. But in terms of like all the drop passes, the passes that were thrown out of bounds, a lot of those, errors that they had early in the spring game on both sides of the ball in terms of both the offense and the defense. As the game kind of went along, they kind of went away. Jalen Woods and Noah, they didn't throw the ball out of bounds as much as they did kind of earlier in the game. And in addition to that, they didn't have as many false start penalties. You had one, like I said, Jay Tesson had a big pass down the field. Number 81 dropped it. But they also had a ineligible man downfield, so it wouldn't have counted anyway. Creole King, salute to Creole King. He said, how is Fred McNair adjusting to Jaguar Nation football? Me personally, I think he's doing a good job because when the offense was struggling early on yesterday, I don't know if it's Coach Fred McNair's input or maybe it's a Coach Graves thing. They made a conscious effort to get Fuller Dupree the ball early and kind of get him involved in the game. I think that kind of helped the offense, start moving the ball eventually. So the fact that they got the tight end the ball early, and then they got the offense going, and then a lot of these wide receivers was getting off. Chandler Whitfield, Cam Jefferson, Jordan Petrie, and then it seemed like before they could start struggling again, they kind of got to do the ball again, and they kind of kept the drive going. Eventually scored a touchdown. So I think he's doing good. But one thing we pointed out yesterday during the spring game, I talked about this, in one of my videos probably a couple weeks back. Basically, I don't think Coach McNair is going to be there long. I think as soon as he's able to get another head coaching job, I think basically he gonna he probably just passing through Southern. He's not gonna be there, long term. Coach Willie Todd, he's still on the staff. Yes, he is. In fact, I don't know. I think I did a video a few weeks back talking about all like coach for coach, like who, each coach is coaching what position. I don't know if I did a live stream. I don't know if I did no, I take that back. I'm sorry. I did that particular video on Facebook. So yeah, so if you check out my Facebook page, I talked about it there. And Rodney Norris said, yes, he is. So overall, I'm kind of encouraged about what I saw yesterday. But the thing that kind of concerns me is the schedule is a killer schedule. All the toughest games. They play J-State early in the season, which I don't like, and then I don't know you play them on the road. You got FAMU on the road. You play McNeese early on the road. So if Southern has a great deal of success, it's going to say a lot about how good this team is and how resilient they are. Like I said, based on what I saw yesterday, normal season I would say is I say they 7, maybe 8 win team, but I think the schedule, I'm gonna do a video breaking down the schedule. I'm also gonna listen to this live stream I had, and I'm gonna go back and because I know some of the members of Jaguar Nation, I don't know what it is, seem like they like the videos better than the live stream for whatever reason. So some of this stuff that I talked about on this particular live stream, I'll also talk about on the video format, but more than anything, a couple other things that I maybe fail to point out, I'm going to also point out on the video. I'm getting ready to shut this down. I appreciate everybody that came through, that, showing love and showing support. Of course, I love Southern University, member of Jaguar Nation. Adrian Crook said, that's enough to win the West. Yeah, I ain't gonna lie. I think if we could get the 7-8 wins, I think we should win the West. In fact, another one of my coaching friends and I was talking about this yesterday. I don't know how one thing with the West is wide open. So, I don't want too early to say who I think gonna win the West. But in terms of the East, I'm not gonna lie. I think before Coach Willie Simmons left and went to Duke, I would say FAMU, the runaway favorite to win the East. But now I'm kind of leaning more towards J-State to win the East. So, but the West, I think the West is wide open. I think anybody can kind of almost win the West, Creole King, he said, do you think we might go 9-3? Me personally, I'll say based on what I saw yesterday, I'll say we in a 7-8, between 6 to 8 wins range. We can win 6 games, 7 games, 8 games. I'm not a betting individual, so it's really hard to say. But if I had to bet, I'd probably say we're a 7-win team based on what I saw yesterday. But that's one thing I've noticed over the years in the spring. There are springs where we thought we ain't gonna be all that good, and we end up being better than I thought. There be other springs like, oh yeah, we're gonna be that team, and we was that team. The last spring I really remember that is I remember when they had Quincy Richard back in the Gap. I mean, they had a team that year, but we kind of knew that, they had a senior heavy team. I think he was like the only real question mark because, he was extremely injury prone his junior year, and he had an excellent Bayou Classic his junior year. And, I remember asking my dad, may he rest in peace. I'm like, hey, do you think he's that good, or you think he just had a good game? He's like, I don't know, something we're going to tell. And sure enough, the next year, Southern started out 6-0. They were on fire. So, they played well that next season. And, the spring was a kind of a gateway to, the kind of success that they had, Also, Creole King, he was saying the West is definitely, without question, the West is unpredictable. And I'm not going to even lie. One thing that, I pointed out, a team like Texas Southern, even though I know Andrew Body, he transferred to Alabama State, the Texas Southern fans was telling me when they came to AW last year, they was like, Andrew Body wasn't playing well. Like even, prior to, even though he was hurt, they were saying even prior to him getting hurt, like he really wasn't playing that well anyway. And Texas Southern really, in all actuality, I'm just going to kind of be truthful. They should have beat Southern. They should have beat FAMU. So even Texas Southern, we thinking they're a bottom of the barrel team in the West. Texas Southern played well. I mean, the quarterback position, is a bit of a question mark. But, Adrian Crook, he was like, the high school he played for didn't win. Well, I mean, hey, that's something to kind of point out too. Billy Bob say 5-7. Nah, I'll say 7-5 before 5-7 to just kind of be truthful. I think they're a little bit better than a 500 team. I think the fact that, the offense kind of gave me some hope. The offensive line is to me right now, I think that's my biggest area of concern. Of course, they still need to clean up a lot of penalties they had, a lot of drop passes, a lot of errant throws. But I think more than anything, I think with time and repetition, I think they're going to be all right. I think between the schedule and the offensive line, to me, I think that's my two biggest concerns. And like I said, getting ready to shut down this live stream. Appreciate everybody that came through. Appreciate everybody for love and support. Stay tuned because I'm gonna drop a couple of videos in terms of some other insider information I'm kind of hearing from one of my coaching friends that's kind of close to Southern University's program. In addition to that, I'm also give a video recap of the spring game, and more in a condensed format. I'm gonna try to also touch on some stuff that I missed during the course of this live stream. Any video suggestion ideas or whatever, be sure you put them in the comment section of the videos that I'm getting ready to drop. Appreciate everybody for the love, everybody for stopping through. Also, be certain next Sunday, this same time, 7:30, to check out myself and my brother Jared 11 Green on the Southern Baller Show. We also going to talk about Southern University spring game on the Southern Baller Show. We're going to talk about a variety of other different topics. Of course, we talk about HBCU football, and of course, I'm a Southern fanatic, so I always gotta have to bring up Southern when we're on the Southern Baller Show on my brother Jared 11 Green's channel. Also, check out my brother Brent Fox on his channel where he talks about football. He talks about boxing, talk about a variety of different sports topics. So also go check them out. Let me check out these comments before I shut it down. Creole King, he said, do you think we could beat Alabama State if we were playing them this year? Honestly, truthfully, I think we could. It kind of depends on who going to be the starting quarterback. More than likely, I think Body going to be the starting quarterback. I think realistically, we should have beat them last year, if you ask me. That's just my honest opinion. But the fact that Harold Blood, he couldn't make enough plays, to me, I think Coach Julie should have pulled him in that game, to be truthful. But it was early in the season. That was his guy. He stuck with him. ASMR Lover 92, I appreciate you. He said, I think Southern will be okay if they play together. I think that's another thing, too. I think, especially the offense, once they really got it going, they really kind of did their thing, So I think as long as they stick together, I think they're going to be straight. Appreciate the, you subscribe to the channel, ASMR Lover. Creole King, the baseball team. Yeah, the baseball team is on fire. I'm gonna try to also point that out in one of my upcoming videos. The baseball team, they kind of doing their thing. In fact, they beat LSU. So, anytime Southern baseball team beat LSU, LSU one of the top teams in the country. So yeah, so that's a big thing. Yeah, true that. Brent Fox. So yeah, no problem, bro. Yes, Billy Bob. Fred McNair is the tight end coach. He's definitely the tight end coach. So, maybe he had some input in terms of getting Dupree full of the ball yesterday. Maybe he had some input on it. Maybe not. But, it was refreshing to kind of see that they got the tight end of football. Hopefully they can incorporate the tight end more in the offense this coming year. Yeah, they did sweep they swept Grambling for baseball, so that's a big thing. Shout out to the homie, my brother Jay Good. Salute to you, bro. Former Southern University Jaguar also too. Yeah, Billy Bob, Willie Totten is the quarterback coach. So yeah, so I'm getting ready to wrap up this live stream. Appreciate the love and support for everybody. Appreciate y'all rocking with me, especially everybody that's been, rocking with me since day one. And just everybody just showing love and support. Remember, I'm getting ready to drop a couple of videos. I'm going to do a video format of my recap of the 2024 Blue versus Gold spring game. And in addition to that, a couple of narratives that I'm kind of hearing coming out of the spring game. Appreciate everybody. Appreciate the love and support. Hope everybody have a blessed, phenomenal evening, a blessed, phenomenal work week. Catch y'all on the rebound. Peace and blessings.